the 18th day, December 2023. I'm going to be your host tonight. I'm Dana. How are you? I'm in Canada. I apologize, of course. I'm from Canada. You can call it 709-589-4406. 709-589-4406. Oh my six. What do we got here? We got Hanford over in the corner. We got the Australian nuclear submarines. Just doesn't make any sense. And then we got the fusion power, which makes even less sense because we got lots of geothermal, right? We haven't even tried to exploit it, and it's everywhere on the bloody planet. And it's a bloody planet, that's for sure. My apologies, I was a couple of minutes late. Technical difficulties. Consider subscribing and stuff like that. Or I'll come and take your cookies on you. What are we doing here? Let's get after this. So, last night's video, when it was over, had 2022 views and 37 likes. It's pretty good. But I only had 22 people, but I had 37 likes. I actually had 90 people, 89 people. We had a poll last night. Our pro-nuclear media, who claim Fukushima nuclear water only has tritium, actually mass murdering monsters. And obvious answer was yes. It's interesting because we had 35 votes, but we only had 22 people. And so the video last night was 1 hour, 50 minutes, and 55 seconds. I actually thought that was 2 hours. Just a few shows lately I've done that. My eyesight is fading. 15 hours later, I had an extra 6 seconds. I went from 1 hour, 50 minutes, 55 seconds to 1 hour, 51 minutes, and 1 second. They're adding something onto my videos. You notice my comments don't show up for 12 hours. They'll extend my video by around 6 to 10 seconds after 12 hours. There's a whole lot of things happen at the 12-hour mark. The comments will start registering. There won't be any numbers. There could be 5 comments, but it'll say 0 comments. But at 12 hours, that'll... plutonium 241 from Fukushima at 70,000 times more than the atomic bomb fallout. It was way worse than that. It was infinitely worse than that. Each building had around 21,000 pounds of plutonium, right? These are pure plutonium uranium fuel pellets. And we also have models of plutonium dispersals independent of that last story. And this is data released by TEPCO. And which is based on, a lot of these models were based on venting. They weren't even based on nuclear meltdowns. Hi, everybody. We got a poll tonight. Should TEPCO and Japan be removed from Fukushima 4 nuclear reactors and 8 fuel pools meltdown sites? Yeah, Chernobyl didn't have any fuel pools. Chernobyl was a single reactor. It was much smaller than Japan's reactors. It was a graphite reactor. Japan's reactors are pure uranium, pure plutonium. And at the top of each building was 2 fuel pools full of decades reactor cores. Like I say, it was. And you can see there's 4 reactors are gone, but the reactor 3 over there and reactor 4 are, you can't argue about that, right? They're gone. The fuel pool's gone. Any academic on the planet in the nuclear industry looks at that and knows it's gone. And detonation of Reactor 1. And Reactor 2 melted down right alongside of it. We actually have the footage of the detonations of Reactor 1 and Reactor 3. Let me start that again for you. We actually have the detonations. So these buildings that should have been razed all the way to the ground, they kept the stumps there, and it didn't make any sense originally. But what they done was put these contraptions over it, doesn't physically touch it, and then they pretend that they're in the building. And all they need is the media. And that's easy. They're the prostitutes. They sell out really quick. Because the fuel pool
Get more details on Japan's nuclear crisis. We're joined by Brendan Kennedy, Professor of Chemistry at the
And this is a model from France of 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. The official story is none of it happened. As of July 13, 2023, this year, this was the first English version of a story we heard, and we never. And United Nations is the biggest, is the people that cooked up this narrative. South Korea author says he's a professor at the Department of Nuclear and Quantum Engineering. He said it was equal to 2.2 grams of tritium. It's the only thing that got out of the buildings that don't exist anymore, and that the media is pretending they're in. But don't worry, he said it's like throwing 3 grams of sugar into the ocean. Yuck, yuck. When the plutonium models suggest otherwise, right? They picked up 30 million one-ton bags, but only 2.2 grams got out. How do you have a conversation with these media?
There's about 60 million tons of contaminated soil that's being stored, planned to be stored, outside the Fukushima Daiichi perimeter fence.
So they're talking 60 million. I say 30 million, which means that they're not telling you the truth when they claim nothing got out on the tritium. A desperate plea from Palestinians: drop your nuclear bomb on Gaza and exterminate us and get it over with. It was no fun if you do it right away, right? When Israel must consider, because, I mean, they can't fight back. It's children. Look at all the children. They might as well. I mean, you know, they've used enough bombs. It's equal to 8 or 10 nuclear Hiroshima-sized bombs. So, you know why you won't see this in Gaza no more? They blew up all the hospitals and everything else, right? And, I mean, they're not afraid because all Gaza got is paper airplanes. The unrestrained destruction of Gaza, the disproportionate killing of over 17,000, mostly women and children, and alleged retaliation for 1,200 killings by Hamas and 120 hostages, had left the Palestinians in a state of deep isolation and weighed down by a feeling of being deserted by the world at large. They're accurate. UN resolution has no impact. It's not supposed to. This was a sign they took down in United Kingdom made by Palestinian children, because when Israel decided they were going to wipe Palestine from the map, they didn't want to have people in the subways thinking about the children, right? So they took it down. Some people have told me they would rather just have a nuclear bomb dropped and take them out, because the situation has gotten so desperate. They don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. Only the light is a train coming in.
Israeli politician blows up after colleagues said that all children are equal.
ילד הוא ילד.
אם הוא ביישובי העוטף או בעזה עצמה. האוכלוסייה הערבית רואים וחווים את הכאב האנושי.
Then she made a more malicious statement.
אז אין סימטריה, והילדים בעזה, הילדים בעזה הביאו על עצמם את זה. אנחנו עם שוחר שלום, עם חפץ חיים, אין סימטריה.
How is it possible to talk about peace and be so cruel at the same time?
She said the children of Gaza brought it up on themselves. It's crazy. And so if you try to have a conversation with any of them, they're saying, well, you don't think Israel has a right to exist? I said, well, like, what are you talking about? Who said that? Nobody said that, you kooky whack job. Does Gaza have a right to exist? If Israel has a right to exist, the Palestinians have a right to exist, surely, in peace. And when was the last time Palestine seen peace? Pre-Israel, right? 70 years ago. Coincidentally, a junior minister last month proposed dropping a nuclear bomb on Gaza, one way of dealing with the pesky Palestinians. But Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the sadistic demon himself, shot down the proposal. Here's like, he said later, and suspended him, he said. Netanyahu, I remember we covered the story. Netanyahu reprimands the Israeli minister over Gaza nuclear option comment. But Israel has dropped enough bombs this is the 2nd of November. And this was just aircraft. We're not talking about the 4,000 tanks and all the howitzers and everything else that they got firing huge munitions into the country, into the wasteland. Israel bombs dropped in Gaza equivalent to 2 Hiroshima nuclear bombs. It's actually equal to around 10 or 12 at this stage, right? Palestine doesn't have any weapons can do that to Israel. Israel's dropped 25,000 tons, 50 million pounds by November the 2nd, less than a month. So how many have they dropped now? 10, 12 Hiroshima bombs? On people that don't have, Palestinians don't have a military. Palestinians don't have jet fighters. They don't have a navy. They don't have a fleet of drones. They don't have 4,000 tanks. They're not the 4th biggest weapons producer on the planet like Israel is. Israel has never looked like that. Palestinians, effectively now, they destroyed 2.2 million people's homes, and they still haven't got Hamas. They're not trying, right? Hamas was created by Israel. Meanwhile, Netanyahu last week reportedly justified the killing of civilians and the virtual destruction of Gaza by pointing an accusing finger at the United States. It's the United States' fault. The Israeli police said any protesters would be shipped to Gaza's nuclear wasteland.
מי שרוצה להזדהות עם עזה, מוזמן, אני אעלה אותו על האוטובוסים עכשיו שמפנים לשם. לחימה, מבחינתנו הנחיות חד משמעיות, אפס סובלנות, לכל אירוע, לא הסתה, לא של האחות, לא של הרופא, לא של הזמרת. אין אישור לביצוע מחאות, והמחוז פה הוכיח שעושה את זה ביד רמה. אנחנו לא במצב עכשיו להתחיל לתת לכל מיני כאלה לבוא להתעסק איתנו. בנושא של אפס סובלנות, ומי שרוצה להיות אזרח במדינת ישראל, אהלן וסהלן, מי שרוצה להזדהות עם עזה, מוזמן, אני אעלה אותו על האוטובוסים עכשיו שמפנים לשם.
Ship him there. It's the police. It's a complete disconnect of being a human, right? They don't see any. You're not seeing any human emotions from any of them. They're out there, but they're barred from all platforms. This is when they blew up the university. They targeted all the iconic structures of the country right away. all the water filtration systems. They didn't have any power, but they blew them up anyway. And they blew up the whole country because Hamas might be there. They blew up all the hospitals and schools because Hamas might be there. Yeah, we'll get them next time. Imagine blowing up the universities. What do you think they're... Like, how are you going to replace the universities when you have land, sea, and air embargoes for the last 50 years already? But, I mean, they're still going strong. They'll be celebrating Christmas on the ashes of Palestine, I'm sure. The devastation of Gaza, Benjamin Netanyahu claimed, was no better than the carpet bombing of Germany by the United States in 1943. Well, there's a big difference. Israel is the fourth biggest weapons producer on the planet, and Palestine can't fight back. Germany could fight back. Germany had tanks. Germany had warplanes. Germany had a military. Germany had submarines. Germany had armed forces and air forces and navies. Palestine doesn't have any of that. You can't suggest that there are any symmetrics there. U.S. President Biden, a puppet of Israel, shot back, yeah, but that's why there's all these institutions were set up after World War II to see to it that didn't happen again, which I find bizarre because he doesn't care.
بس المربع كله المربع اللي قالوا يخلوه ضربوه.
So this is just
المربع اللي قالوا واحد يجي هان.
These are all residential homes. Well, Hamas might be there, Dana. The United Nations created in 1945, following World War II, were mandated with one central mission, the maintenance of international peace and security. The first thing they done was went and flattened North Korea, and it's been 70 years of land, sea, and air embargoes against them. And who did they attack in the last 70 years? Nobody. What was interesting, though, was an ex-Israeli intelligence agent service employee who's now a journalist. And she said, why didn't Israel stop them? Why didn't Israel respond? And I'll let her tell you the story because it's fascinating to hear the story. And this is, I believe this is the first day or something.
A year ago, there was a military operation in Gaza to prepare for such events, and ongoingly there are trainings for these kind of scenarios. This raises serious questions for me anyway about Israeli intelligence. What happened? 2 years ago, there was a successful deployment of underground barriers with sensors to alert exactly on these kind of terrorist breaches. Israel has one of the most advanced and high-tech armies. How come there was zero response to the border and fence breaching? I cannot understand that. Personally, I served in the IDF 25 years ago in the intelligence forces. There's no way, in my view, that Israel did not know of what's coming. A cat moving alongside the fence is triggering all forces. So what happened to the strongest army in the world? How come border crossings were wide open? Something is very wrong here. Something is very strange. This chain of events is very unusual and not typical for the Israeli defense system. So to me, this surprise attack seems like a planned operation on all fronts. This is a failure to protect the people of Israel, for sure. Perhaps the biggest failure since the Yom Kippur War exactly 50 years ago, if not bigger. By the way, is it a coincidence it's exactly 50 years ago, almost on the day? The Yom Kippur War was on October 6, 1973. If I was a conspiracy theorist, I would say that this feels like the work of the deep state. It feels like the people of Israel and the people of Palestine have been sold once again to the higher powers that be. At the same time, this is still very, very difficult to fathom. Have a good evening.
Yes, so she's calling it a false flag event. And they came through the wall in 15 places, and Israel didn't have any way of stopping that, and allowed them to get back with the hostages, and they've been using that to justify the genocide. And that's an omnicide, too, because they're killing all the species in that country, right? And they're polluting the water tables and the ocean, because a lot of it will wash eventually out into the ocean, right? The poisons that they're using. They're using poison gas, just like the Nazis did in Auschwitz. They also feel like the entire world has abandoned the Palestinians. And they basically have. When Israel, this originally started, there was a video of Israeli soldiers before they finally started the bombardment that might never end. Well, Israel's the fourth biggest weapon producer on the planet. These weapons will expire if they don't use them. If they can't sell them, they need to use them. That's where the Palestinian comes in handy, we noticed. I just want to play this clip of this religious indoctrination that they do to justify going in and destroying mostly women and children. So they used that. That was a justification. That was the go moment. They had a false flag, and they knew it. They knew that was a false flag. All them soldiers knew that. And they all know what they're doing is wrong, too. Fukushima, cooling Fukushima possible after connecting the grid. I thought I'd throw that headline in there because that's pretty funny, right? That was the 22nd of March. That's 10 days after they detonated, and they're able to go in and restore power. That's amazing. They're like 1,200 miles of the coastline was washed away. They're going to restore power. Look at that. Alrighties. Xcel Energy was fined $14,000 after the leaks of radioactive tritium. They don't have a single line at any nuclear plant that only carries tritium, by the way, from its Monticello plant in Minnesota. Now, that money wasn't for the leak, which is 1.6 million liters. Like a liter is a leak. 1.6 million is an event, a serious catastrophic event. No, the fine was because they used a new tank and they didn't have their permits yet. So the Nuclear Regulatory Agency gave them a fine because they were supposed to keep it in buckets. See? Don't believe anything is in the tanks, for goodness sakes. If you look at Exploring Tritium Dangers, a book review, you better read the book than Robert the shithead Alvarez. But that 1 teaspoon of tritiated water would contaminate about 100 billion gallons of water to the U.S. drinking water limit, which is outrageous, which is revolting. It's so high. That's enough for 1 million home with water for a year. A spoonful can contaminate the water for 1 million homes for a year. And they lost 1.4 million liters. And Monticello. And pretend it was all tritium. No, nothing else. Really. It was a high pressure. You had to shut it down to repair it, which meant it wasn't tritium. fine wasn't for the leaks. Like, and every time I hear the word leak, I want to kick somebody in the arse from the nuclear industry. But because Xcel started pumping contaminated water, into a temporary storage tank before it had the permits in place. Well, that makes sense. The only fine the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency leveled against Xcel over the leaks. And like 400,000 gallons, 1.46 million liters is not a leak. That's a catastrophic amount. Xcel already installed and filled 20 temporary tanks. Adding an extra tank would require a permit because it raised their total capacity at over 1 million gallons to 1.4 million gallons. So if they only lost 400,000 gallons, why did they got 1.4 million gallons, I wonder? Anybody know? 5.3 million liters. When you had 1.6 million liters in leak. But they have containment for 5.3 million liters. So what's going on, I wonder? The Minneapolis-based utility has since transferred the contaminated water to more permanent in-ground lined storage pools and dismantled the temporary tanks. It says like pools, storage pools. Like storage pools. What are you talking about? Outdoor storage pool where it evaporates and floods because of rain. It continues to recover and it reused the contaminated water that leaked. Reusing the water? What are we talking about? They're pumping it out of the ground and then they're going to reuse it. Like, whoever wrote this, I want to give them a big hug because they're that stupid. It must be terrible being them. It continues to recover and reuse the contaminated water. But it got storage for 5.6 million liters. And it transferred that contaminated water to a more permanent in-ground lined storage. So they're talking about an outdoor pool where it evaporates. And dirty scumbags, eh? Just despicable scumbags. You can't trust anything the nuclear industry says, not a friggin' thing. Not one sentence. We have resolved the issue and taken all necessary corrective actions outlined by the state regulators. Kevin Koss says, tritium and radioactive isotope of hydrogen is commonly byproduct of nuclear plant operations. Embedded that does not travel very far when it pulses energy at the speed of light and cannot penetrate human skin. Yeah, it can. It's organically bound. Well, like when it's in the water, it can absorb right into your skin right away and it's right in your bloodstream right away. And when it's in your body, it doesn't have to pulse very far because it's pulsing at almost the speed of light. So it's wrecking chromosomes and DNA and cells and everything else with every second with each pulse of energy. They said the person who drank the water from the spill would only get a very low dose. The NRC says tritium happens from time to time, but typically don't affect the public health or safety. It's humiliating that these people think they're humans. There is no safe limits, and they're not putting anything in the tanks. It was winter time. The ground is frozen, so this ran straight in downhill to the Mississippi River, where there's tens of thousands of farms downstream and millions of people dependent upon that water. And it ain't just tritium. Xcel, which has recovered most of the tritium, they says, has built an underground metal barrier to ensure no contaminated groundwater reaches the river. After low levels of tritium were discovered 9 meters from it. At minus 30, everything's frozen, so you had serious frost. So it ran straight out. There was no way to contain it. And they didn't tell anybody for 4 months. And there was no work. They're trying to contain it for those 4 months because they wanted to get an extended license for 10 years. So they just didn't tell anybody. It's such a betrayal. That still doesn't do it. That still doesn't do it justice. Tritium measurements on site are more than 90% lower than peak readings, and tritium is not being detected in the Mississippi River despite the increased monitoring. But they didn't start monitoring until 4 months after the accident. And I got a couple of those stories I brought in for you. Testing by the Minnesota Department of Health still shows no evidence of tritium in the river, but they didn't check till 4.5 months later. Till a week after, or 2 weeks after they announced it. MPCA came under criticism for notifying the public until March, well after the first spill. It was well after, it was 4 months later. And notice we didn't hear the International Atomic Energy Agency a single time during Monticello's massive radioactive emissions. International Atomic Energy Agency says public trust is the key to projects using radioactive soil from Fukushima. And so they got 30 million one-ton bags. It's really hard to wrap your mind around the significance of how many bags that actually is. But they picked it up because it's going to be radioactive for a million years. And now everybody stopped paying attention. Like it's hard. They got 105,000 sites. There's 105,000 sites of one-ton bags. And so what this was this year, the International Atomic Energy Agency. The International Atomic Energy is not a regulator and is not in a position to judge or approve Japan's soil recycling project. They say the same thing about the water. They're not a regulatory agency. They're not in a position to judge or approve. So what are they doing there? Because the media has the world convinced that these are saviors and they're the best intentions for the planet. Back to Monticello nuclear plant leaked 400,000 gallons, but they got storage built on site for 1.4 million gallons, or 5.6 million liters. But they only lost, he said, 400,000 gallons. So tritium emits low-level radiation similar to what's found in food people eat. No, it doesn't. What are you talking about? Tritium is like potassium. A gram is about a penny. A gram of tritium is $30,000. They use it in nuclear weapons to double, to triple, quadruple the power. To suggest that it's the same as found in the food people eat. I like to take a plate full of tritium and let them eat it. Make them eat it. Go ahead and eat it, scumbag. And when you die, we're going to go feed it to your loved ones. Leaked. Every time you hear the word leak, you want to... Just disappointing that they think they're humans. 400,000 gallons leaked. They asked the commissioner why the public wasn't notified earlier. He said, we have now sufficient information to be able to share it out to the wider group. Yeah, well, that's not how it works. You know why you got sirens around nuclear power plants? Just for incidences like this. Here's another headline to think about. Federal officials work to reassure residents near the site of Monticello nuclear plant leak. Federal officials work to reassure residents. Work to reassure. The officials came there to reassure them that 4 months later that everything was under control. We're only telling you because we're required by law at some point to tell you. Months after leak. Why wouldn't they say 4 months, 4.5 months after the leak? Why use the word months? Public just found out about it last week. They applied for a 20-year renewable to operate the plant the week before. And then the week later, then they told them about the release. 3 times as much tritium in the hallway X assigned than is in water under the plant. Think of that statement. There's 1 million of these signs dumped in your landfills. But that's simply not true what they're talking about. The water that was released wasn't tritium water. There's no hoses, there's no pipes at the plant that releases just tritium water. Tritiated. And there's no such thing as tritium at a nuclear power plant. It's tritium-3H. With only one resident speaking at the meeting and also advising his neighbors to keep calm. They only had one person speaking and he was telling his neighbors to relax. The average person will get 300 milligrams in a year from the sun, the ground, and everything, Myers says. The sun, like natural, you can't conflate natural stuff with anthropogenic man-made stuff. Myers, you despicable monster. You disgusting parasite. You revolting traitor. You hideous creep. There's no end of it, too, when it came to Monticello, right? We covered it for the news cycles that it showed up in. Residents wish they knew about the nuclear plant months ago. Yeah, 4 months, a little over 4 months before it, when it first happened. Why wouldn't you tell them then? Because the nuclear industry knew they wouldn't get a 20-year extension, right? 400,000 gallons of chemicals, radioactive chemicals, leaked from the Monticello plant. And to call it a leak is so dishonest, it's so disingenuous, and it's literally criminal to downplay it. They announced 400,000 gallons of a radioactive chemical leaked. Every time you hear the word leak, it's just... Every nuclear accident, that's the only word you're going to hear is leak. They said it was fully contained when it wasn't. They didn't know where it was. And had not been local contaminated drinking water, and the contamination had not reached the Mississippi. No, they said it was 9 feet away from the Mississippi, and they stopped it. In the middle of winter in frost, 4 months after it started. And they didn't tell anybody because they wanted to get a 20-year extension for the nuclear disease factory, right? They said that she'll trust officials that there is no threat to the public. I think it concerns a lot of people, but just everybody is covering things up nowadays. Said he believes officials, as always, the doomsayers are saying our fish are going to have 4 eyes in the Mississippi and stuff. And they weren't trying to manipulate you at all, were they? That doesn't look like they're trying to manipulate anybody. Leak. Monticello residents wish they knew about the nuclear plant leak months ago. This is a story from last night we never got to. Kristen Stewart warns the world is dangerously close to a nuclear catastrophe. She's a big shot Hollywood actress. Whatever that is. I don't watch TV, so I don't really know. Must be nice, all I can say. We've grown so accustomed to the looming threat of nuclear annihilation that's barely registered in our daily lives, Stewart says in a fundraising video obtained by the Hollywood Reporter for the documentary, which is based on the book Doomsday Machine. Fukushima is a doomsday machine by the Vietnam-era whistleblowers. Daniel Ellsberg, I guess, famously made copies of the Pentagon tapes and other classified nuclear documents during the Nixon administration and leaked, there's that word again, the documents to the New York Times and other media outlets in 1971. The New Brunswick release is an energy strategy with small modular reactor focus. This is Canada. A strategy outlining how the province aims to transition to clean energy, calls for addition of 600 megawatts of capacity to Point Leper nuclear disease factory. But there's like, why are they putting their eggs in that basket when there's so many other solutions, right? Like geothermal. Why would you look at geothermal? And there's other ways to drill now, right? You can use 25,000 PSI jets to cut the rocks before your drill bits hits it. You can use pneumatic hammers to bust the rock up before the drill bit gets there, right? So you can do it a lot quicker, a lot cheaper than nuclear could ever be. But there is no, this is the Canadian, remember there's two British, I believe they're both British, mixed oxide fuel small modular reactor entities that showed up here in Canada. New Brunswick gave them $5 million each with a subsidy company, the shell company that they closed the next day. They just stole the money from the Canadian taxpayers and give it to these. The ARC 100 small modular reactor plant, powering our economy and world with clean energy. We heard all the propaganda. And it's not just propaganda, it's false propaganda. It doesn't even exist. Which is propaganda. But it doesn't exist, rather. And they also call for a 5-fold increase wind, solar, hydrogen, renewable, and biofuels. Why wouldn't you call for geothermal? Solve everything to one go. Do it the first time. Rainbow Lake could become the first municipality in Canada powered fully by renewable geothermal energy. Now, it could be, it will be, unless somebody beats them to it, and it doesn't look like anybody's going to beat it to it. So that Rainbow Lake is going to be the first municipality fully powered by geothermal. The roadmap includes reports seized 150 megawatt of small modular reactor. I just put that there. We're back to that other story here. Climate change. And the need to move away from greenhouse gas fuels are creating a global energy transition, the Resource and Energy Development Minister Holland had said. The Brunswick Power operated existing 600 megawatt disease factory CANDO plant at Point Leper, which releases 14.6 million trillion atoms of tritium each year, which is more than all of Europe combined by orders of magnitude, by the way. And the partnership in July, New Brunswick Power, partnership with small modular reactor developer, which doesn't have an application into the regulatory agencies, so they're decades away from even building a test one. ARC Clean Technology Canada. So it's about not coming up with solutions, right? And so you're forced to keep that reactor they got because they didn't try to build anything to replace it. And the only thing in the basket is another disease factory known as a mixed oxide fuel, which is despicable that those things can even exist. Clean technology, sodium cooled fast reactor. These are breeder reactors, by the way. Conference indicates surging interest in super hot, super deep geothermal energy. Super hot, which is hotter than nuclear, gas, oil, and coal combined under your feet. North Korea may test ICBM soon, South officials say ahead of the talks in D.C. United Nations have destroyed them for 70 years. Well, they destroyed them. Japan occupied them for 50 years and totally ruled North Korea. Then they lost to Hiroshima, Nagasaki events. So they pulled out, and then United Nations went there and called it a police action, and millions dead, millions missing, millions in refugee camps, millions unaccounted for, millions of orphans. And now they've been occupied in land, sea, and air embargoes for 70 years, because you got to have a boogeyman, right? North Korea may test launch an intercontinental ballistic missile this month. Can you blame them? Who drove them to that, I wonder? 70 years of being ostracized from Earth. They essentially don't exist. They're a non-country. You can't do any business with them. You can't go there and take vacations. They have turned the country into a fight to survive every day. And they have demonized and vilified and marginalized that country relentlessly for 70 years and totally ostracized it from society. North Korea's ballistic missiles are the focus of Washington's extended deterrence. And like Washington, United States military-industrial complex has 900 bases worldwide. They hold a grudge forever, right? North Korea has developed and tested a range of ballistic missiles that can reach targets in South Korea, Japan. We can't blame them for wanting to bomb Japan. They occupied them for 50 years. Korea turned their back on them for 120. And mainland United States went there and napalmed every community in the entire country. Burnt it to the ground. Putin, Patriot saint of nuclear weapons. Nothing else surprises me anymore. The Patriot saint of nuclear weapons. Something you can't even use. Whatever works, I suppose. Sellafield pole position for next generation nuclear engineers. So there was a a little, what the hell are they called? These are fast cars. So they have all these engineers are bringing these cars for these annually, each year races. There's a lot of people, right? So the nuclear disease, the big one, and the biggest one in Europe, Sellafield, is going there trying to recruit the university engineering students. And I think they're paying like engineers £30,000 a year or something. So they got 3,000 students there representing 16 countries. And the engineers really are the best during the competition. They're being courted by Formula One teams. And the nuclear industry want to steal them away and take them to these disease factories because a lot of these engineers will get all kinds of cancers and that, right? So you got to keep replacing them. German nuclear plant to be replaced by Europe's biggest battery. And so there's so many ways you can store energy. Why would you do batteries? It's so stupid. It's such a waste of money to use batteries to do it. 700 megawatts of capacity in the second stage. The initial plan is 100 megawatts battery plant. They're going to use it to charge 50,000 cars, I think it is. Is it? Something like that. Did I miss that? Or is that another story I got? Who knows? Portugal and Spain launched a geothermal collaboration platform. There's currently 2.2 million heat pumps in the EU. And they have the possibility of reaching 10 million heat pumps by 2023. So the heat pumps will keep your house very comfortable in summer and winter. It's cheap to do. It's like you're going to get your money back fairly quickly. It's the smartest thing you can do. Water at 23 degrees Celsius passes through the heat pumps, increasing the temperature to 8 degrees Celsius for the campus. This is incredible, eh? Editorial, net zero needs nuclear power. Like it's the opposite. And Net Zero was a paper written by Miles Allen. And he's just a nobody. So he wrote this paper because that was trending, right? And the United Nations, like, we like that. We'll get you a job at Cambridge or Oxford, I can't remember. I think it was Cambridge, was it? And get you an associate professor job or something there. And we're going to use your paper to destroy humanity. Development spearheaded by the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. They have metal, and so they were supposed to just bring peace. Now they attack you in every facet of your life. They go and bomb your country, and then they send in UNICEF, which they own too, for the children. They're despicable, aren't they? At the start of the just ended Constipated Party 28, IAEA also called for active recognition and support for energy technology for nuclear, right? Yeah, that was disappointing. It wasn't a big surprise. We knew last year. That's what they already announced last year. They were going to do that this year. They're going to go all out nuclear. They did mention, I'll give them credit, they mentioned geothermal there a couple of times during 13 days. But there was basically, don't use geothermal, you screw up the nuclear industry. Ex-Westinghouse executive pleaded guilty to charge in a failed Skane nuclear plant. That's where they were giving billions of dollars to the energy company. It's really something, eh? They do it at all nuclear power plants. It's the same scam everywhere you go. They just happen to get caught. Related to the abandoned project was eventually abandoned, leading to mass layoffs and higher bills for the utilities. Made on records to knowing that the project completion dates for the 2 reactors were often unachievable. The felony charges carries a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison, $5 million fine. Under a plea agreement, though, he would receive probation and a year in prison along with a $100,000 fine. It's just good business, right? You make $1 billion and you get a $100,000 fine. But he now travels between Florida and Colorado and works in the energy sector. And he's worked in energy companies in the U.S., overseas, the U.K., Poland. Anywhere you can get bribes, right? Los Alamos National Laboratory to get $1.76 billion for his nuclear weapons program. Weapons they can't use, right? Taking the money away, destroying your country with this disease factory machines. To cover its plutonium modernization operations, is looked to produce 30 nuclear reactor bomb cores a year. $886 billion military budget. $886 billion. How many homes could you buy for the homeless with that, I wonder? It's a record every year. It gets bigger and bigger. Now it's like madness. I forget what I was thinking when I done that equation. Yeah, so if you've done geothermal megawatt is $5 million basically for the expensive geothermal. Would be $5 million will give you a megawatt. And so that's 1,770 gigawatts. Because it's 177,000 megawatts is 1,770 gigawatts. So that's enough. That budget would pay for enough electricity to turn America, the entire country, into geothermal 3 times over or something, right? Nuclear waste, 50 years of searching, still no, it's 80 years of searching. Well, that's true, I suppose. 30 years of dumping and 50 years of searching. That makes sense. Still nowhere to dump it. They're not even trying. They want it vented into the environment. It's obviously, this is an act of sedition, right? Department of Defense has engaged a former Defense Deputy Secretary as a highly paid consultant to find a place on defense land to store submarine nuclear waste. They look at a search for the impossible. Because it's still splitting the atoms. That's what makes nuclear waste so dangerous. He's not even trying to come up with a solution, right? You got Savannah River, Los Alamos National Laboratory. You got all these Hanford. You got all these big, massive, just hideous national laboratories, all built on the biggest aquifers in that part of the country. They're all completely contaminated. Drone threat concern is 25 spotted over nuclear facility. Geez, that sounds scary, don't it? Some of them are authorized drone flights. So why would you put that in the tally? And then they have 2 drones there, like they're going to come in and sabotage the nuclear disease factory. The data constrained by technical issues preventing access to records before 2021 includes a range of episodes from alarm activations, direct sightings to authorized drone flights. Authorized drone flights. Over 45,000 employees hit by nuclear research lab breach. Yeah, these breaches are always just data thefts, right? And so the data theft, the best way to release it is just put it out there publicly. And then if corporations get caught with it later, they say, well, it was public. We took it because it was public, right? We didn't buy it. We didn't cause it. We just took advantage of it. No, this is how you do it, see? The degenerate Idaho National Laboratory said an updated notice published a week that it first became aware of the incident November 20th. Probably happened 4 months before, like Monticello. Idaho National Laboratory is offering free credit monitoring to those affected. And they should put a freeze on their credit reports to minimize the chance of fraudsters opening new lines of credit in their name. How do you pronounce that? Thorpe nuclear waste site? So they're right by the ocean. Notice how they got that cut off? That's not it because they haven't built it yet, right? I can't remember. Maybe I'm wrong because we covered this a lot. So they're going to have all these caverns under the site, so-called deep geological repository, right? Residents must be clear about the plans to build a nuclear disease factory at their village before deciding on them. So they don't even have permission. We see nuclear waste from the UK being stored underneath up to 1,000 meters of solid rock until its radioactivity is naturally decayed. Now the problem is that the containment will naturally decay, the fuel will melt down, and eventually it'll crack the earth open, and emissions from it will guarantee we won't have any species for millions of years on the planet. So the stuff you're putting underground is going to melt down because it's lethal for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years. So no matter what you build and put it in, it's going to be compromised by neutron bombardments, by beta rays and gamma shines and X-rays and gamma shine and everything else. And so that's going to break down within 30 or 40 years, it's going to break down the integrity of the metal and the cement. That becomes brittle. And as soon as you compromise one of them, it melts down. It burns at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. It doesn't need oxygen. And it just starts consuming everything around until it gets to the next fuel. And then that chain keeps going. And when you're talking about you can imagine how long it's going to take for a breakdown in one of those over there to melt down to ignite the rest of them. It's going to happen quite soon, right? In your lifetime. You're not supposed to have it on the planet in the first place. No matter how much money they offer you, we shouldn't have nuclear waste on our doorstep. And everything that they ship to these facilities, and we're talking about from Donneray, from Sellafield, from many other places, these are absurd, toxic. Everything is vented on the roads on the way there. Past President Hanford nuclear workers getting federal help for lung scarring disease. So, like, there was a bill that went through Hanford. Went to the Supreme Court. A case that said that if you worked at Hanford any time in its history, for 8 hours and you got sick and you don't have to prove it happened there, then you're entitled to a pension or a payout of around $150,000 in health care too. You just got to work there for a single 8-hour shift. And you're entitled to a pension or a payout if you're sick. You don't have to prove it happened. Now, if you're working here, you're guaranteed to get sick. There's no way you can't. These are the emissions from look at the way they're decommissioning it, like the worst possible way imaginable. U.S. plutonium facility might blow up, or as they like to call it, experience a criticality event. 450 billion gallons of industrial radiological contaminants. It wasn't industrial radiological, it was radiological. It had gone through a chain reaction. 450 billion gallons is a wall 6 feet thick, 518 feet tall, wrapped around the entire planet more than once. Imagine a wall 518 feet tall wrapped around the planet. That's what they dumped in the soil in the one go. It's 586 square mile nuclear wasteland. And the 200 tanks, the 177 tanks, known as the tank farms, that sludge that they dumped is equal to, I can't remember, 1.4 million of the same tanks. That they spent how many billions of dollars trying to build an automated facility at Hanford to encase it in glass, because you got people convinced that's going to be a solution for the stuff that was in the tanks, 177 tanks. And the problem is that the gamma shines, the X-rays, the neutron bombardments will break down the glass quicker than it does the steel and the cement, right? But they got people convinced that it'll work, and so it can't work. There is no solution. Because they're in charge. You can't come up with a solution. 90% of the money goes to administration, right? Hanford, the world's stupidest site imaginable. After Fukushima, the radiation fallout was 450,000 times above detection levels, persisted for weeks. And this is Xenon 133. Which segues me into this story right here. Why the world should still worry about dirty bombs. Well, it's highly unlikely a dirty bomb is going to do worse than that. What Fukushima done, right? But they need money. You need to throw money at that, because that's another way the nuclear industry can suck the life out of your country, right? Radiological weapons states, not terrorists, pose the main risk. In the years after 9/11, a new threat loomed large in the mind of policymakers and the public: dirty bombs. Oh, they were doing dirty bombs far less powerful than the nuclear, easier, cheaper, blah, blah, blah. Well, when you look at the dirty bombs, in the United States, gathered to dispose of depleted uranium shells for its A-10 Warthogs, they only shoot dirty bombs, right? And they got new munitions. You want to get rid of the old munitions? So they got 35.7 million rounds of dirty bombs. 35.7 million dirty bombs they need to get rid of. They shipped a lot to Ukraine, right? And so did the UK. And who else done it? I can't remember off the top of my head. Radioactive documentary, The Women of 3 Mile Island. Santa Susana released 460 times more radiation in 3 Mile Island. They hid that one for over 50 years. And we covered this documentary. Residents living within a few miles of 3 Mile Island. It was over 2 million people got a serious dose. They said it was equal to watching colored television for an extra year, Dana. And so you can imagine what kind of degenerates they got in the industry over there to say something like that. A partial meltdown. If it was a partial meltdown, how come all the documentation that we got shows it was way worse than that? The women of 3 Mile Island have spoken out for years against the government and industry officials' false assurances, outright lies. What was it Dick Thomas done there? I think I got that imported already for us, but Dr. Renu Joshi, who had worked extensively with cancer patients in the area, suspects radiation from the meltdown did harm the residents, and the more studies must be done. We got models of the fallout in the cancer clusters, for goodness sakes. Increased rates of cancers, congenital disabilities, malformations. There was a lot of transient workers there too, but so you never get the real numbers. But the NRC buried the studies to avoid public panic and legal liabilities. No, that's what they do everywhere. They're despicable creatures. When state officials were notified radiation already released into the atmosphere, they said 100,000 people were exposed. They admit there was 2 million people exposed. So you got to be careful of these documentaries, right? They find, sincere people, and then they use them to tell the lies. Reports of enormous increases in cancers, infant mortality rates doubled, birds disappeared, munitions, many mutations, pets, deaths after the radiation exposure. People left their pets behind, right, when they finally did. Dick Thornburg, he was masterfully handled the 3 Mile disaster. Masterfully. He refused to issue an evacuation order, which could have created panic. Like when 3 Mile Island is the reason all nuclear power plants have sirens. And some of them are 160 sirens for some plants within 10 miles of it. On the third day of the crisis, he did recommend to pregnant women and preschool kids living within 5 miles leave the area. 3 days too late. He didn't want to cause a panic, right? We covered their anniversary videos each year, at least minimum, and we cover any stories each year we find. New minister pledges to work on Fukushima nuclear plant decommissioning. Going to work on, like it takes you 60 years to decommission a normal plant. These are multiple meltdowns. They're paying the homeless $11 US a day to work there. Japan's new industry minister on Sunday, another useful idiot, pledges to work for the decommission of the meltdown-stricken #1 nuclear power station northeastern Japan. And this is, that Uchibori over there, that disgusting. I'm surprised that they shot Abe first. I always thought he would get assassinated first. At a press conference after the meeting, Sato told the government, said the government will take responsibility in thoroughly ensuring the safety of the water discharge. Really? That's quite interesting. Implementing measures to deal with false information related to the water release and helping local fishers continue their operations. The genocide will never stop. Stop calling Fukushima water contaminated. That was Japan major media today. Stop calling the water contaminated. No. Wastewater from nuclear plant is safe after treatment, TEPCO says. And TEPCO is an acronym, not a word, by the way. Should be all uppercase levels, letters, Choi, C. Young. By the way, seawater is being poisoned at a continuous rate from Fukushima, 2013. Researchers say it's impossible to contain the radioactive wastewater, and they use the word leaking. It's impossible to well, if it was a leak, you can contain it, right? But it's hemorrhaging out of there, flowing. Japan's government has lost all credibility. 2013. Now, I went out and done multiple research expeditions for 4 to 5 months a year, year after year after year, from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska, where there's 27,000 islands, ground zero. And the species to your left were exterminated. That's extermination. They're gone. I went there year after year, and they didn't come back. That's an extinction event. Right? So wastewater from nuclear plant is safe after treatment. You can't treat water from a nuclear meltdown, moron. That's why Sellafield's mixed oxide fuel meltdown in 1957 is still leaking, if that's the word you want to use, hemorrhaging 8 million liters a day into the Atlantic Ocean. 70 years later. Tokyo Electric Power Company wants South Korea to stop calling wastewater released from the missing reactors contaminated because the water has been treated, but you can't treat it. Japan's concern over Japan's fish imports looks to be justified. Contaminated seafood recently on sale in Korea, adding to the fears over 6 million pounds is too radioactive. They had to send it back. So to suggest, because now they're claiming nothing got out on the tritium, see? South Korea bans all fishing products from 8 Japanese prefectures, 2013. Why did he wait to 2 years, I wonder? Tokyo Electric Power Company wants South Korea to stop calling the water from Fukushima plant contaminated because the water has been treated. Well, you got to treat the whole biosphere. The model up in your left-hand corner is 20 days of radioactive fallout in one of the models. That's the Xenon 133, not tritium, but Xenon 133, which means the ocean above you is completely radioactive. The two terms treated and contaminated should be used accordingly. A spokesperson for TEPCO told reporters. Now, TEPCO is nationalized, right? It's the Japanese government runs that site, that creature. It's treated if the water's gone through the advanced liquid processing system, which we know is not. And 5 videos back, I've done a system on the Alps, what they're talking about right there, that same system. It simply can't work. If treated as the water had gone through the advanced liquid processing, then it's contaminated if it hasn't. Well, how about 30 million one-ton bags of radiation? Is that contaminated? Have you treated that? You perpetual liars. It's treated if the water gone through the advanced processing system. It's impossible to move the 100 radioactive materials and the 1,200 radionuclides. It's impossible. You can't treat it. You can't treat radioactive, for God's sakes. You can't burn it. You can't incinerate it. You can't throw it in acid and destroy it. You can't get rid of it. We don't have any way of destroying it. You can't put it in vice grips and crush it. You can't neutralize it with cat litter. It's contaminated if it hasn't. Well, it hasn't. These 30 million one-ton bags haven't. Radioactive plume map shows Fukushima contamination headed towards Hawaii. Well, we know now that the whole planet was covered in just 468 hours. How are you going to treat the entire planet? And so there's roughly 130 cubic meters of water a day. That's a garden hose is 140 cubic feet of water a day at 30 psi, right? A 3/8-inch garden hose. So you're going to split that 4 ways and spray one into each melted reactor, 150 feet wide, 195 feet tall. Most of that is missing now, mind, except for 2 buildings. Over 1 million Japanese still living in an area with high daily radiation exposures. Yeah, but nothing got out, Dana. Everything is treated, so have a nice day, Dana. Well, the Japanese government wants to discharge all the stored wastewater, shut down the plant by 2051. Skeptics are, they can't do this to a normal plant. You got 4 melted reactors and 8 fuel pools melted down too. That's why we got a poll tonight. Should TEPCO in Japan be removed from Fukushima's 4 nuclear reactors and 8 fuel pools meltdown site? Oh, I think it's pretty appropriate. Unlike China, South Korea has yet to openly challenge their release, which began in August. Like, this is when it originally happened. This is 2013 picture. And that's what they claimed to look like in 2013. They claimed that it didn't look like this. They've done that for 12 years. Now they're saying it never even happened. As of July the 13th, 2023, this year. Seoul calls the Pacific Ocean discharge contaminated, which it is, obviously. That's the official picture. That's the official picture. I can't tell the difference. Can you tell the difference? I can't tell the difference. Hey, Ma, come on in. Can you tell the difference? Gee golly, wow, Dana, I can't tell the difference. I know, right? Some in South Korea have called for using treated to describe the wastewater, pointing to Japan's claim the radiation levels in released water are sufficiently low. The Korean government, for now, seems reluctant to back the shift. Well, see, that's the official picture, and up at the top of it, that's what they say it looks like. Now, they built that up there. No one can go in there. It's a lethal dose. This was created off-site. They went in and assembled it there. It doesn't physically touch the building. The industry nothing but demons. They're destroying everybody's future. Every radioactive element except for tritium is removed until the safety levels are met, he said. Adding that tritium is also diluted with seawater. Countries like Korea are releasing tritium in line with their own safety. There is no safety levels. First off, the water that they're allegedly coming up from the wells, because the water they're going into the tanks for the first number of years was from the test wells that they dug all over the site. So they would pump up water. They dug wells. They would pump up water each day, and they would test it. And then the water they pumped up was what was going in the tanks. Now they spun it and claimed that they're inside. They got pumps inside of here pumping up the water they're pouring over. It is ridiculous to suggest you're doing that. First off, you're not pumping water over that. Second off, it doesn't look like that and never did. Or never will. You can't. That's the official pictures. Both of them are official pictures. It can only be one of them can be true. The fuel pools are at the very top of the building. You got to be way above the fuel pool to look down on it. This is ludicrous to suggest that's the actual fuel pool. TEPCO is planning an annual release of 22 trillion barrels of tritium, below similar discharge levels in France, China, and Korea. Well, first off, the buildings don't exist. They were originally 190 feet tall. There's nothing there. That should have been scrapped to the ground, right? But they put a cover over it and then pretend it looks like that. But there's not a nuclear scientist on the planet when he seen the building originally said the fuel pool was intact or the reactor core. They just, all of them worldwide hate your guts. And that's obvious because they're pretending that it looks like the picture to your left instead of what it actually looks like. Japan and Japanese people will be affected most by the discharge. The Japanese government wouldn't do something to hurt its own people. They're maniacs, eh? You guys are crazy. Well, I'll dispute that, though. You'd be surprised what they'll do. They got 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. 865,000 cancers in the first year. Not everybody got health care. Not everybody was diagnosed. And cancer is just one of the many, many, many diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries. I mean, they're growing food right alongside of 1-ton bags of radiation. So to suggest that Japan wouldn't do something to hurt its own people, how can you? They're growing food right alongside of 1-ton bags of radiation, for goodness sakes. In a nuclear wasteland, surrounded by nuclear wastelands. In early December, another worker dismantling one of the damaged reactors was exposed to radiation. So these are both the official pictures. It's simply, it can't be that picture. There's no way it works that way. Radiation levels do not pose an immediate. No, because it could take months, weeks, or months, years even before it manifested or gets diagnosed. Just because you can't smell it or hear it or feel it or touch it or pick it up or throw rocks at it or perceive it doesn't mean it's not an issue. And 2 sieverts of beta radiation, that means a liter is a lethal dose because you can't just have beta in a free environment like a nuclear meltdown site. It's going to be loaded with all gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas and X-rays. And so a gallon of it is a lethal dose just walking past it. In fact, the ELP system, the REVA system, the Siri system, these are water filtration systems, didn't work in 2014. And so they claimed they were pumping everything directly into the tanks that they were putting on the reactors to cool them down, which was they built the tanks to manipulate you into thinking they didn't hurt the Pacific. That's what the big whoop whoop is all about today. But if you actually put that stuff, and that's what they were talking about, in a tank, then first off, you're talking about 1.4 million sieverts per tank of beta alone. Multiply it by gammas, alphas, and neutrons, and then you're going to talk about hideous numbers per. So 1.4 million sieverts means you can't get back on the site. These tanks ain't thick enough to protect you or shield you from a lethal dose. So you can't build other tanks there. They got all the apologists to come out and pretend that it looks like that instead of what it actually looks like. And I think it was really egregious because Gunderson made the racks for the fuel assemblies for the fuel pools for 70 reactors in the United States that are identical to Fukushima. And his wife was a public spokesperson for the nuclear industry. And they're still out there pawning the fake stories about Fukushima. Kishida's loss of public support may hurt Japan diplomatically. That's okay. He'll step down. Somebody else will step in, right? They do that every 18 months or so anyway, for the last number of decades. They'll go in and do all the sneaky stuff as they can, and public finally catches on to something, and somebody else will come in. They're going to be clean, squeaky clean, wear $5,000 three-piece suits, and make all the broken promises go away and break some more when they walk away. In 18 months or so. He lost public support over several scandals instead of the scandals that he done. What does the J, which is Julius Robert Oppenheimer, mean? And they always give you these artificially intelligent pictures now, created pictures. This is just software now, so let's delve into the intriguing mystery. Why is it intriguing, though? I don't get that. His name is Julius. He's just ashamed of it, so he hid it away. Kids used to beat him up in school, right? Royal Navy tempts new recruits with darts, booze, and curries. But not if you're fat. Well, there's a lot of fat people now because of Fukushima, right? Excess weight gain right out of the blue after a nuclear accident is a marker for radiation brain damage. Fish and chips on Friday. You get to go out and be a guinea pig. You get to destroy the planet for $37,000 a year if you're a apprentice engineer. And the cooks there are getting 23,000 sterlings or pounds rather a year. To go out and be isolated from your loved ones and your children and your friends and your families for extended periods and be a slave where you got everybody pulling rank on you. You got endless bosses above you. Everybody's above you is your boss. Everybody can just tell you to clean shit all day. Nothing you can do about it. You got to go ahead and do it. It's stupid. And you can't quit your job. Why would you take that job for? The intake of booze is permitted. Yeah, I'm sure. Lots of soap on the shower floor in that place. The consumption of alcohol is governed by the submarine general orders, which means you can drink whatever you want. I think it's 10 cents a shot or something, right? a Navy tradition dating back 100 years, because for 100 years they used to have Chinese work on their ships, and they were the laundrymen. They would wash all the shit and poo out of the military's clothing. They were mainly hired from Hong Kong, and they were used to keep sailors' uniforms washed and pressed. Now they're all being sacked because they could be spies. 3 of them were stopped from joining the crew of the Queen Elizabeth. Can you imagine naming a nuclear submarine Queen Elizabeth? My God, boy. Well, Fort was sacked earlier this month despite serving 39 years. So you served 39 years, and they fired you because you got slanty eyes. If they were Japanese, I could understand it, but... A special friendship Taiwan event to support Japan. A special friendship. So Taiwan is insane, eh? Get a load of this one. Taiwan, yeah. Never disappoint me. So there's a special upcoming event titled Let's Promote Taiwan-Japan Friendship by eating Japanese seafood. And it'll be held on the evening of Christmas Day, December 25th, in Taipei, the capital of Taiwan. In a protest of the released Trator Water into the ocean from Tokyo Electric Power Company, the scumbag Tokyo, because they kept Tokyo Electric Power around so you don't blame the nuclear industry, you blame TEPCO, right? The Chinese government, which are not allowed to work on military ships in Britain, obviously, because they could be spies, placed a total ban on the imports of Japanese marine products and severely impacted Japanese seafood businesses. So the event's executive director said, we want many people to know that Japan's treated water meets international safety standards. So this is strictly about spreading propaganda. It meets safety standards. Xcel Energy plans to build 2 gigawatt battery project in Japan. But why wouldn't you build like geothermal or salt rock energy storage or compressed air storage or water batteries, something sensible? Why would you use batteries? And that one's enough electricity to power 50,000 EVs. But geothermal is better than storage. You don't need storage. Nuclear regulator, Fukushima Daiichi splash incident, a violation of safety. Yeah, they splashed the entire planet, see? With Xenon-133, with sulfur...
Jet streams are also real, and they take 3 days. Jet stream, it never stopped coming in.
Sorry about that. I forgot it, because yesterday we didn't have audio for that particular window, right? So I got that thing fixed today. Nuclear regulator, Fukushima Daiichi splash incident. Power plant failed to adequately confirm risk factors involving cleaning work. So this is where they allegedly were cleaning the ALP system. Like, come on, right? The reactor's actually melted down, for God's sakes. When are we going to stop this hoax and pretending that the reactors didn't melt down? When does this madness finally come to a stop? When are we finally going to grow up and admit we got a problem? Because that's the only time we're going to come up with solutions is when we admit we actually got a problem. These are not rocket scientists. Like, which do you really believe? I screwed that up. Does anybody really believe she's in the fuel pool at the top of that building? If you think she's in the fuel pool at the top of the building, then you're the same person that believes that the only thing they got there is tritium. And I feel really bad for you and your loved ones. You must be quite the burden. Knowledge of 2011 disaster declining among the young. This is batshit crazy stuff, this story. This is like right out there, man. Hollywood couldn't make this one up. Knowledge of 2011 disaster declining among the young. Declining. Did you know 70% of Japan territory is admitted to be polluted? Actual polluted. Tokyo is contaminated with highly toxic radiation. Korean Times. But the new administration, like nothing happened. It's like 3 grams of sugar, for God's sakes. What are y'all making a big whoop about? But in 2013, the Korea Times was Tokyo is contaminated with highly toxic radiation. 70% of the country is radioactive. Scientists warns of a new flood of radioactive particles around Fukushima. Those who escaped the initial fallout can now be exposed, particularly in coastal areas, or a particular risk. But they're saying that the students' understanding of Fukushima is declining year by year. Now, in 2019, there was 42 entities tossed out the records from the earthquake of all the volunteers and the people that worked at the nuclear meltdown. The municipalities in the nuclear wastelands of Iwate, Miyagi, and Fukushima Prefecture reported throwing out the records. They've been discharged, or already been discharged, including notification from the central government and listed names of the volunteer workers, because, their preservation periods have expired. We don't got space to provide evidence, because if the locals find it, they're going to take it and sue us and win. Back to this story. Knowledge of 2011 disaster declining among the young. They conducted a 20-question survey on students to test their knowledge about the disaster in the fiscal year 2019, 2021, 2022, and found the scores have dropped every year. A little stupider every year. Well, the propaganda they've been feeding these children is extraordinary, right? We hope to enhance the opportunities to learn within the university. That's the last spot you're going to go to learn. And in cooperation with others in Fukushima Prefecture, that's the last spot you want to go visit, to hand down the lessons, he said, stressing the importance of working to relay memories of the disaster. Their memories, their fake memories, not the actual stuff that happened. Working with his team, a team of scumbag children a bit, from the university, an associate professor at Fukushima University Organization for the Promotion of Education. Just the propaganda central, I would imagine. Question covers 4 topics: the disaster, the nuclear power plant accident, the nuclear accident, evacuation, radiation decontamination, and today's Fukushima Prefecture. To compare the scores and percentages of the correct answers. The correct answers is their answer. The percentage of those who gave a correct answer to a question regarding the direction in which the radioactive substances were carried by the wind. Following the nuclear accident was 53% in 2019, but only 40% in 2022, because they must have gave the real answer instead of the fake one that they wanted. Well, there was 300,000 becquerels square meter of iodine in areas near Tokyo before the end of March, and they only included iodine 131. That rain caused 29 million becquerels a square meter in soil of cesium-137, double the last government's test in 2011, November 28. And they picked up 30 million one-ton bags. That stuff doesn't exist anymore in the official story, right? They scrubbed that from history. The percentage of those who gave a correct answer to the question regarding the direction in which the radioactive substances were carried by the wind, it covered the entire country. There was nothing escaped it. It covered the whole planet. There was nothing that escaped it. There are cases. In less than 30 days, the plumes covered the entire planet. This model over here is 26 days in the bottom. A radioactive fallout covers the entire planet. So what they're doing to the children, this whole story is about the indoctrination of the children in the schools. He points out the need to increase young people's interest by conveying the history and lessons through enhancing educational programs in schools. It's collaborating with Fukushima Prefecture government, Uchibori's government. That's just cruel, man. 35.8% of Fukushima children with tumors of 2 centimeters or bigger. The thyroid glands, by the way, are only 3 by 5 centimeters. And this study was 13,646 out of 38,000. And pre-study, pre-Fukushima numbers were 1 in a million. So when you scale it up, that's 358,000 out of a million with thyroid tumors and a child's thyroid. So their thyroids are producing radioactive hormones constantly, nothing but radioactive hormones. And these are anthropogenic, man-made, hellish hormones we're talking about. And the children are developing, so you can imagine how bad that's going to turn out. The Great East Japan Earthquake and Nuclear Disaster Memorial Museum, they spent $50 million on it, within sight of ongoing multiple nuclear meltdowns. And other institutions, they got lots of them, don't they? On the one hand, the percentage of those who answered correctly was up for some reasons, such as those about the half-life of cesium-134, which is 2 years. Why would you talk about cesium-134 when the biggest byproduct of radiated fuel rods is the curium isotopes, which you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium, for goodness sakes. That's why they call it a curium. The half-life of cesium-134, right, because that's got a 2-year half-life. So the kids are going, oh, well, geez, as long as it's all gone by now. It is necessary to offer opportunities to learn depth at elementary and junior high school. They hate children, don't they? They just want them to be good slaves. They don't want them to be critical thinking skills. Miwa, 20 years old, a first-year student of Faculty of Food and Agricultural Sciences in Chiba Prefecture, which is a nuclear wasteland, said that while she remembered there was damage in her hometown in Chiba, it was over 400,000 becquerels a square meter of xenon-133 in Chiba. It was just one of the many studies. She wasn't aware of what exactly happened in Fukushima. That's no accident. So when your own people don't know what happened in your own country, that's the hope that the rest of the world is going to wake up and wonder. The Great Eastern Japan Earthquake Nuclear Disaster Memorial, because everybody in the media is so... The alternative media are completely silent about this subject. There's only less than 5 people that I know worldwide that are honest about this subject. The Great Eastern Japan Earthquake Nuclear Disaster Memorial Museum in Futaba, which is an abandoned nuclear wasteland 2 kilometers from the ongoing nuclear meltdowns, conveys the significance of learning about natural and nuclear disasters through field trips that operates and other events it hosts. An official of the prefectural government's harmful rumors and fading disasters memories countermeasure policy unit. I gotta do that again. An official of the prefectural government's harmful rumors and fading disaster memories countermeasure policy unit. Fading disaster memories countermeasure policy unit. Try saying that with a straight face like I just done. You probably can't do it. It took me years of practice to be able to pull that off. An official of the prefectural government's harmful rumors. I can't say it with a straight face. I think Japan takes the cake for evil and scumbags. And they do it with such ease. It's just stunning. They should have like awards every year for scumbag in Japan, shouldn't they? Prefectural government's harmful rumors and fading disaster memories countermeasure policy units. I don't know if I heard that one before. Has anybody heard that before? Have we ever covered this one before? I don't remember covering this one. This is like a whole different level of stupid. I'm ashamed that I never heard of this one before. the government's harmful rumors, prefectural Fukushima government's harmful rumors and fading disaster memories, countermeasure policy units. Here's some memories they don't want you to keep in mind. Official blasts Japanese government over Fukushima. Such immoral people. They let the radioactive substances flow out freely and said nothing while contaminating the entire Pacific Ocean. It's just absurd. And now they're trying to cover the whole bloody thing up. You know, the countermeasure policy unit of the prefecture government's harmful rumors. And issues such as the release of Trator Water into the ocean. Well, the airborne plumes of the Neptunium-239 covers the planet, and that model up there is 20 days of radioactive fallout. 20 days. So this is almost 13 years of harmful rumors, is it? You got to give it to them. When it comes to crazies, there's nothing like nuclear. When it comes to scumbaggery, there really isn't anything quite like nuclear industry. They got a patent on being scumbag, I think. The whole world is ran by just degenerate scum of the earth. Generations after generations of scumbags with nobody to hold them accountable. And now we got the worst that human can create in charge. The worst degenerates imaginable. And their children are grown up, can't wait to get the job. Fukushima disaster is the worst case of nuclear contamination in history. It's a crisis of all humanity. 2013. 6 in 10 Fukushima children tested had diabetes, not from tritium, but from nuclear meltdowns, right? Children with over 11 becquerels a kilogram of cesium start to see heart problems. You can put 200 million, so think of a becquerel as an atom, and every time it pulses energy every second, almost at the speed of light, that's a becquerel. I can do that every second, every minute, 1,440 minutes a day, day after day, for sometimes millions of years. And that's pure energy. You can't get rid of energy. So you can put 11 atoms, which is becquerels, and every second that atom will pulse energy for whatever its lifespan is, which in the majority of it is very long. And especially like the anthropogenic man-made long-lived isotopes do not lose their energy. Not like natural stuff. So you can put 200 million atoms on the head of a needle, but you can't see it. So how the hell are you going to notice 11? And the problem is, their food was banned in 55 countries in 14 prefectures for a decade. It should never have been lifted. The government put people in those key positions, in those countries, rather, and removed those restrictions. The shake of a hand for the majority of them, right? It was only Taiwan that had a referendum, and then 2 years later, when that ran out, then they just done a handshake and removed all the restrictions. They didn't have another referendum, did they? And there's nuclear industry. Some people in the nuclear industry in Taiwan went on a hunger strike to get restrictions lifted so they could import food from the nuclear wasteland to poison the people of Taiwan. There's total corruption. Everywhere you look at nuclear is complete 100%. It's no matter where you look, it's corruption. If you look at any of them, you'll find endless amounts. And every journalist that writes about it is guilty of crimes against humanity for hiding the horror of the reality. Irreversible heart damage for children with 50 becquerels a kilogram of cesium-137. So, 50, you can put 200 million of these atoms. Each atom is a becquerel pulse a second. So each atom is a becquerel when it pulses, but it can do that every second for thousands or millions of years. And so when you hear becquerel, think of an atom that's pulsing every second and never stops. So 50 of them are in your body pulsing every second throughout your body, right? And it's destroying chromosomes and DNA and cells every second, millions and millions of them with 50. And so your body has to repair all of that, and it has to attack those 50 atoms. And over 30 or 40 years, build a sarcophagus around it to contain it. We call it a tumor. But it has to repair all the cells and chromosomes and DNA damage. Now, in an adult, 50 becquerels a kilogram, which you can't perceive, you can't smell it or hear it or feel it or touch it or anything. 50 becquerels in an adult leads to irreversible lesions in the vital organs. Everything is a vital organ. There's no such thing as not a vital organ. And this despicable creature from Australia, disgusting Kevin Kemp, he's a nuclear physicist from Australia. He's a vicious scumbag. I've long before Fukushima came along, I hated his guts. He's such a monster. He's a real life monster, right? He says nuclear power is cheaper, safer, faster. Kevin Kemp, like, what are you talking about? It's the dirtiest thing on the bloody planet, it's the most resource-intensive thing on the planet. And there's nothing out there fast about nuclear. There's nothing safe about nuclear. And there's definitely nothing cheap about nuclear. There's nothing cheap whatsoever when it comes to nuclear. Because 90% of it goes to administration. That's why it's so expensive. And so he had him on for an interview. And I was having a good day, so I didn't listen to it because it only make me angry. He's a despicable creature. He's a despicable creature. Speaking of creatures, Australia, Perth nuclear waste storage facility planned for the submarines. Their submarines, this is madness. They're going to spend, $370 billion on submarines. And they don't even have a reliable energy grid. It doesn't make any sense unless you realize that the 7 of the top 10 weapons producers on the planet set up shop there in the last decade. That's the only reason all that money is going into that, because they need to make money to justify their weapons production facilities in Australia. And the money that they're using is enough to build twice as much geothermal energy as they need for the entire country. They can have free geothermal, free electricity for the entire country, double over. So they can steal 50% of the money and still have free electricity for the entire country. You charge them like $10 a month or something for maintenance. Low-level radioactive waste generated by nuclear power submarines. There is no low-level radioactive waste generated unless you're wrecking a ship. Could be stored elsewhere. Why should anybody take your waste? Said the waste ultimately goes where the waste ultimately goes remains unclear. They're fighting about nuclear waste. They don't even have a nuclear submarine yet. Australians are vehemently opposed to nuclear waste being stored in Australia. In particular, international nuclear waste. Well, they're shipping nuclear fuel everywhere. Well, yellow cake, so why shouldn't they take some of it back? They already polluted the whole planet with they helped fuel Fukushima, right? Australia is vehemently opposed to nuclear waste being stored in Australia. A South Australian government spokesperson said it would listen to advice on the best plan to store the waste. Building nuclear power plants. That's what a president and prime minister is. They're idiots that are going to sell you out. They're, like, if you look at what Boris Johnson done, my God. It's hard to believe he's human, right? Catholic activists arrested for anti-nuclear protests outside the United Nations. The United Nations, that's disgusting. They're disgusting what they got done to the whole planet. They don't have any sovereignty over any country. But these activists knows this is the misery machine, right? And Nuke Watch, which is John LaForge, right? Who claims that Fukushima didn't melt down. Hey, you want to talk a little bit of stupid? Don't forget fusion. Your daily dose of stupid. Inside the world's first reactor that will power the Earth. That reactor is not going to power the Earth. Even if you do get it to work, that's not going to be used to power the Earth. And a single reactor can't power the Earth. But see, this is the subtleness of brainwashing, isn't it? In other words, they need another bunch of billions of dollars because they don't have to produce anything. It's hard to convey the technological achievements of making those magnets, the world's biggest magnets. They're going to contain 150 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, but they don't know it's going to work. If you ignite something 150 million degrees and it backfires on you, what do you think is going to happen? We don't have any fire extinguishers put out something 150 million degrees that I know of. You're going to harness the fusion of the sun on Earth, no less. He's like I've covered him a lot. He's a scumbag, eh? And look at all the precious metal and resources and academic studies tied up in this stupid, idiotic. Like, we already got a solution. It's called geothermal. Why are you going to waste your time? And then if you took the 5,000 nuclear, or the physicists working on this, and put them to work to solving Fukushima fallout and solving geothermal, you wouldn't even look at this garbage. You can look at it again in 1,000 years' time because there won't be any species on this planet in another couple of decades. Thanks to Fukushima. From all corners, they got all these academics. They're usually the kids of scumbags in the industry, right? And they get these cushy jobs. They don't have to come up with any solutions. They're working on a design from 1904. They're making exorbitant amounts of money. It can stand temperatures of 150 million degrees Celsius. Well, you can't quantify that assertion because you've never done it. Right? It's just an experiment to test out a theory. The whole thing is an experiment to test out a theory. And if a theory doesn't work, then they're back to square one. And like we've seen, like the biggest joke about fusion is they're always 50 years away from coming up with a solution. It's a gigantic tokamak. Again, that didn't work either. None of it worked. Magnetic coils. Yeah, it looks great, but we know it doesn't work. If it was going to work, they would have already had it working. It's like Hinkley Point C reaches the milestone. Multi-billion. You can't build anything there for $1 million. You couldn't even rent a percentage of those cranes for a lousy multi-million. What is it, 42 billion USD they spent on this site already? And then they put in multi-million again. So they put it in the headline, they put it in the first paragraph, first sentence. And Hinkley Point is the most resource-intensive construction site in human history. I need 6 more thumbs up on my video. This is a major milestone, building Britain's first nuclear reactor in a generation. Britain didn't build no reactors. This is the EDF from France building it. Britain didn't build anything. I don't know if Britain can build anything. They got the country destroyed. They could if they didn't destroy the countries. The cost reported to be $25 billion is actually $42 billion US. So they're downplaying it right there. You got 10,000 people there that are incapable. Everybody's just guessing. Department of Energy to fund $42 million inertia fusion hub program. First off, $42 million to the nuclear industry. They're going to steal about $38 million of that. The hub will be led by researchers at Colorado, the School of Mass Destruction, Colorado State University, the University of Rochester, and the always degenerate Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, where last year a team of successfully achieved fusion ignition for the first time. Wait now, so 2 years before that, they said they had ignition, and it was equal to enough electricity to power a 9-volt battery. Extra. Then they had to heat it up to 130 million degree Fahrenheit temperatures, and then the extra energy was equal to enough for a 9-volt battery. We made fun of them hundreds of times about it. So then the following year, they said, 2021, they said they had enough extra energy to boil extra 60 liters of water, 60 kettles of water, right? Again, like, how much water can you boil at 130 million degree Fahrenheit temperatures, or Celsius temperatures, 300 degree Fahrenheit temperatures? So again, this is not only suspect, this is ludicrous to suggest that they're being honest. And then last year they claimed, December the 5th, was it or something, that they had fusion. But they tried 16 times, they couldn't repeat it. But I did notice at the bottom of the story, they claimed they repeated it 3 times at the very last sentence. Because everybody knows they didn't, right? U.S. condemns recent North Korea ballistic missile launches. So what? U.S. went in there and burnt down, not U.S., but the military-industrial complex went in there and burnt down every community in the country for United Nations. Every single community for United Nations. York County Nuclear Plant, which is Peach Bottom, is going to conduct their annual science, and they come out with another artificial intelligent picture. This is, gee, I wonder who works there at that site that created that picture. They got 97 emergency sirens they're going to set off. They say it's annually, but they actually do it twice a year. Not once a year, but twice a year. In order to ensure the safety of the surrounding areas, 97 emergency warning sirens were sounded within a 10-mile radius. Like, there's zero possibility they're going to use the sirens. It's zero possibility that they'll use the sirens if there's a nuclear accident. They simply won't do it. They'll never do it, will they? You know they won't. I know they won't. How do we do on our poll tonight, I wonder? Hi, everybody. Should TEPCO and Japan government be removed from Fukushima 4 nuclear reactors and 8 fuel pools that melted down at that site? And what? We got 8% said no? Why would anybody say no? What the hell is that all about? Why would you say no? We got 36 likes on the video with 20 viewers. 36 likes with 20 viewers. So how many views will I have after the show? 11 views? Let's see what they're going to give me here. Refresh the page. Refresh the page. It says I got 26 views. I got 26 views and 36 likes. So usually, like, like last night I had 90 people that came to the show, but I only got 22 views, was it? I showed you earlier, I can't remember. Top of me head. Anyway, I don't really do it for views, but it's pretty pathetic that they do that to me. Like, you got to realize how many public relation firms I employ, right? So if they get rid of me, they're not even going to have a job themselves. It's kind of counterproductive. We got a measly 24 votes on the poll. We knew the poll was going to get heavily censored again tonight. Hi, everybody. Hugs for everybody. Stephen Young seen a bird today. Shocked him. Oh, my God, there's actually birds still left. That's one of the rarest birds you're going to find in Las Vegas, I bet you. And I guess that's it. That's what we got tonight for everybody. I'm just want to make sure we're over 2 hours a night. Last night I came up short. I don't think we are up to 2 hours, are we? I can't see that far. Yeah, we're over 2 hours. That's all I was trying to do, was get over 2 hours. I was 10 minutes shy last night. I thought we were at the 2 hour mark, right? Which puts me up to midnight my time. A long day trying to get this show ready tonight, my God. And especially that first story tonight of Israel, that took about an hour and a half just to get that one story the way I got it. Such is the world. Yeah, good night, everybody. I'm not going to try to figure out... I'm going to go check and see if I'm at the 2 hour before I give it up here. I was hoping to get 40 thumbs up. Yeah, I'm at the 2 hour mark. 2 hour and 2 minutes almost. That's pretty darn good. That's good enough for me. Oh. I see I got links under my video tonight, so they must have okayed. Last night I wasn't allowed to put links down there unless I let them, sent them a 30-second video or my ID. Alrighty. I don't even want to go now. I'm just getting warmed up. But that's the game we play. It's hard because you work all day and you sit there for a couple hours and tell the story, and then it's like, oh shit, it's actually over. I gotta get up in the morning and start again. I guess so. Hey everybody, hugs for everybody. Have a great night. A great day tomorrow. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. We'll be here again tomorrow night. Catch you on the other side. Have a great night. Hugs for everybody. Thank you for finding the time and energy. Don't forget to give us a like, a thumbs up. We appreciate it. See everybody tomorrow night. Take care now.